Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have back with us Jack Peregrim, who's the founder of Fourth Quarter Advisors, and we'll be talking about the retirement triangle, how income, assets, and taxes secretly control your future. Jack, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to be here, and especially talking about this.
Yeah, this has got a lot of meat to it here. Income, assets, taxes, and we don't like the word secretly control. So let's dive right into what that connection could be. What is that connection between income, assets, and taxes?
Well, the issue there is that there is a direct connection among three things that we don't connect. Understanding that connection leads people to make the right decisions that are better for their family, and they end up managing their funds to their benefit in the future, betterment. They will have more income, more assets, and a better tax situation if they just understand that connection. And just to give you a quick overview of it, income, assets, and taxes are three things that we manage separately. And unfortunately, what we do is we make decisions in the short term that typically seem right in the short term, and yet they could have a huge impact later. And if we change any one of them, or if they are changed, what our income is, what taxes we pay, or our assets, any one of those changes, it's going to affect the others in the future. The effect will be real, it'll be measurable. And what we want to do is educate people in understanding that, number one, that's going to occur, and how can we now look to make sure that any changes are positive in the future and not negative. That drives us.
Yeah. And isn't it also a factor too, and we can get really deep into the weeds of scientific, type stuff. But when you make a change in one thing, it can have a big compound effect on the related things. So if you make changes to income, it can have a carryover flow effect to assets and taxes. If taxes change, it can have a backward effect on income and assets. And all of a sudden now you can't just go, oh yeah, this is a small change in this one category, because it really can have an amplification effect.
Yes, I think an example, we've talked about Social Security. And one of the more convenient things we could do is claim Social Security. That way we retire and we have this income that's going to be coming to us every month. And we don't have to draw down on our assets. But if I project that out and I look at the tax implications of Social Security, letting my pre-tax money grow, puts me pay a higher percentage of tax on that in the future because I didn't reduce it when I can pay the taxes that are less. I look at that and it compounds. There's some stark examples of the effect this could have. Would you want me to give you one example?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I recently met with somebody that when I met with them, this is the genesis of what they told me. They said that they're 63 years old and widowed. They have one daughter. And I asked them about their financial situation, and the gentleman had sold a business 5 years earlier, and he had been living off the sale of the business for 5 years and hasn't paid a dime in taxes. And a CPA thought that was a great idea because they keep showing them what little income they take and interest they earn. They don't have to pay taxes on it. Their financial advisor thinks it's great too. Just keep letting the gross grow, because they also had $800,000 from selling the business. And they said they could live 10 more years on the 800,000 and not have to touch anything else or pay any taxes. And I asked them about what do you have that's pre-tax money? And a gentleman had $3.2 million in his IRA. I said, wow, that's really pretty good. And I said, you're not touching that. He said, no, 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 I'd have to pay taxes on
Mhm.
it. I said, okay. I said, do you have any Roths? And he said to me, I have 46,800 in a Roth. He said, well, I shouldn't say that. He said, I did until last week and I bought a truck using my Roth money because it was within $100 of 46,800. Didn't cost me taxes. I was able to use that. And now I didn't have to pay any taxes and I won't this year. And I wanted to show him the connection of these. So I went and put it on a spreadsheet. And I basically said to him, let's look at things very conservatively. I want to start with your $3.2 million. I said, your $3.2 million, if it grows at 5% for 10 years, when you're required to start taking it out, it will be $5.2 million. And I said, when you start taking that out, it would be over 200,000 you will have to take out as income, declaring it as income. Between your Social Security and an annuity he would be having declared income over $300,000. He's
Wow.
declaring nothing now, but 300,000. He would be paying 35% tax on the same funds in the future. So I look at the fact that he's paying 35% on that money, and I took his 46,800. I said his standard deduction is 16,000, so he's not going to pay zero tax on that, and he'd only have to pay 10% tax on the balance of it if he used taxable income. And I just showed him that if he took the money out of the 3.2 million instead of the Roth, and the same 46,800, he paid zero and then 10%. I showed him what that would mean for the 20 years of his expected life. I then took the Roth that would be growing tax free. I said, okay, if you have 46,800 and it only grows at 5% per year, when you die, here's the additional money you would have that would be tax free. I then subtracted what he paid for the truck. So take the truck out of it completely. It ended up costing him $334,000 more because he
Oh,
used a Roth and didn't try to wash tax out of his 3.2 million. Now, he's still healthy financially, there's no question. His daughter is not going to get $334,000 she would have. However, I only addressed 46,800 out of his 3.2 million. You ever looked at the impact of washing the tax out to avoid 35%? When he could, yes, he could pay 12% after the 10% for quite a bit. And the difference between paying 12% versus 35. It's just an example of what he did was he was getting his income in one way and it wasn't the most optimal way. Convenient, yes. Easy, yes. Money's in a savings account from selling his business. So why would he not use that? It was so easy and
mhm.
convenient. It seemed the logical thing to do. His assets, he was letting the wrong assets grow, and his taxes. He wasn't at all considering the impact he will have long term in his taxes. I can't. I can tell you that uh, top of line, he was well over $1 million that he will end up losing in taxes he
Mm.
should have washed out, and actually was closer to 2 million in his
Ye-
20 years. So it just shows that a lot of things we're doing today, we just don't recognize that there's an impact
Yeah.
between income, assets, and taxes looking long term.
It reminds me of something I've said over and over to my kids. It's kind of like life is like playing chess. You make a move and leave your finger on the piece and look around. Is this the right move? Because as soon as you take your finger off, it's official. You can't change it. Well, he should have called you up and said, "Hey, Jack, I'm thinking about doing this and pulling this and doing that." You would have run that calculation and said, "Hey, why don't we consider this?" And he would have gone, "Hallelujah, that's That's a wonderful plan. So it really gets down to what you've mentioned a few times, which is the invisible money concept. So talk a little bit about your invisible money planning sheet, which could really help, prevent some of those mistakes.
Well, a very simple construct. We basically have three columns: income, assets, and taxes. And then typically in retirement, we find that people go through three phases as they phase into full retirement. So we have it further broken down under each one: 0 to 3 years, and 3 years to 10 years, and 10 years and beyond. And we encourage people using those spaces to just put notes that I'll use the word strategy, and I think everyone should. What is our strategy for income in these next 3 years? You can put down, as a couple will talk about, or an individual: I will delay my Social Security. I will get my income from using the right funds, not Roth, but they might say I'll use my retirement account funds, well, to the lower rate. I will then, in the 3 to 10 year, I will be receiving my Social Security. I might be receiving the annuity this person had in his case. And the 10 years and beyond, now they're going to have required minimum distributions that they're going to be receiving. So they would put just the right strategy, because when they have it all on one page, they're thinking through the other two items under each column that are connected to them. The main thing is, yes, you can engage professionals, but professionals are specialized and they don't deal with that. You have one person that deals with taxes. You have another person that manages your assets. And you don't really have one person that manages your income. It typically comes from many different sources: Social Security and investments, and your investments can be in different institutions. So there isn't one way to do it. It's up to us as individuals first to be enlightened and understand that there is a connection between them. And if we understand that connection, we want to think forward. I love talking about the invisible money, and a lot of that is, if I'm 10 years in the future, what do I wish I would have done right this minute? And say, thank God I did that, because now 10 years later, I optimize things instead of losing things and falling into traps because I didn't consider these. But
And
I use
and
this
many
as a
of those
worksheet.
considerations is not a lot of work. It's just taking that extra small amount of time to do it right the first time. I in college I worked for a guy for a plumbing company, and when one of the crews would come back and go, "Oh, Mrs. Johnson's job, we need to go back and fix this thing," and it wasn't done the right the first way, and he goes, "Why didn't you do it right the first time?" And they go, "Oh, we were just busy." And he goes, "Listen, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when are you going to find time to do it right the second time?" And so it just starts compounding. So these are not things that are high level that are going to take months and months on end. It just means think about it ahead of time. And I love your strategy before tactics point. About 15 years ago, one of my taglines I used to use was strategy, tactics, execution, because it's almost like ready, aim, fire. But most of the time people are just like fire, fire, fire. They don't even get ready. They don't even aim.
Well, in my strategy days, I used to talk with my European clients, and we had to come to an understanding, because the American approach to growth and investment was ready, fire, aim. And the Europeans was always ready, aim, 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 aim.
Yep.
And it was a good combination when they would get together and coordinate that. But I
Yep.
want to comment on one thing you said. We do want people to take the high level understanding of what's going to happen. And I'll go to one other column. I'll go to both columns, actually. If I go to the tax column, we now have taxes in 26, 27, 28, unless the midterms change it, that are the lowest tax rates we've seen in our lifetime. Those are the marginal tax rates, the percentage of tax we pay. I'm going to say that one out of maybe 20 people we meet with have ever looked at their taxes 10 years out? Oh, well, how do we know what it's ever going to be? Make
Yeah.
two assumptions. Let's say it doesn't change. It's
Yep.
still going to be it's going to be based on percentages, but also based on what level you're at. Now, do your projections. And I'm not talking about whether you earn 3.2% interest on something, or just knowing high level, round things off, what relative tax level are you going to be at in the future? If we understand that, then we recognize that we will be at a lower rate likely now, which means I want to pay taxes. And boy, that's counterintuitive. Nobody wants to pay
Yep.
taxes. And wait a minute, you're telling me I want to write a check today? And our own advisors don't want us to do this. They don't want us to do Roth conversions or anything that'll be beneficial, because if I have to pay 20% tax between state and federal, and I have $100,000 and I want to move 80 into a Roth, and I can do it and pay less taxes than I will in the future, which means I'm going to end up with both more money and move it to tax free. Think how great that is. That's your sweet spot. But if I'm an advisor and I'm getting 1.2% of 100,000, I don't want to get 1.2% of 80,000. So
Yeah.
number one, the organization I'm with doesn't explain that to me or teach that, but it's just not in their playbook. Now the other column, the assets column, some of the things you want to do as you're within 5 years of retirement is you want to address the assets in several ways. It's best practice and long-term returns. If number one, I rebalance my portfolio. Any good retirement planning book is going to tell you hit retirement, you should have 3/4 of your funds that are out of risk of any losses. People in their 50 years old, they're told they should have 60% stocks, 40% bonds. I don't know of anyone, or to say very, very few people that under 50 years old have 40% bonds to only 60% stocks or mutual funds. We're overweighted with stocks, and we can't. And the reason for that this is there as the right strategy is because when we have our income years, and there will always be downturns in the market, and it always recovers. However, when we reach our retirement years, we draw down on those funds. We don't have the income anymore to allow it to recover. And now any downturn that we do have, and we will have that, death in taxes and downturn.
Yep.
We will have them. Now it drops. And if we're drawing down while we're trying to come back, we will not get back to where we were. You should be rebalancing a portfolio, keeping a higher rate that can't lose anything. And you're going to earn a boring amount on top of it because you're not taking high risks and you're not getting the high rewards. There's no question about it. But if I gave you an example, I have $100 and I have a downturn. I go down to 80. Well, I wait and it's going to come back. However, when I'm at $80, for me to come back to 100, I have to go 25%. But if I'm at starting that process of trying to earn 25% back, and I have a downturn, it isn't just a one-time thing. It's over a couple of months, could be over a couple of years. And I won't get back because I'm drawing down on it. So I lose 20%. But I need to take out 5% because I need it to live on, or I'm doing a tax wash, moving it to Roth, I'm doing something else. Well, now I'm at 75%. I have to have even more growth than is plausible. And what if I take out 10%? I'm at 70%. Well, that means I have to increase my funds 42% to get back just to where they were. So a key here is you do want to rebalance your portfolio. It's not just so that you can be on a beach or a golf course and not worry about what the market's doing. It's really because for practical purposes, we want to protect the base we have. And any good planning book will tell you this. The second issue, we want to change the legal status of our funds. So I'm looking at the asset category and the legal status of my funds. I've got three different legal statuses with three different tax implications. I have pre-tax money. 100% of it will be subject to income tax at whatever rate I may be when I take it out, now or in the future. The second legal status is money after I paid my taxes. But that doesn't mean you're finished paying taxes. If I invest it and I earn money, I pay taxes on that. If I earn interest or dividends, I'm going to pay income taxes on that on an annual basis. But I will be taxed on that again. And then the third legal status is Roths. And with Roths, you've already paid your tax and you'll never pay tax again. It'll grow tax-free. So your asset strategy should incorporate moving things from the tax status that's 100% taxable to no tax. And now that you have to consider the taxes, because if I take money out, I want to pay less taxes than I'll end up paying in the future. So I can end up with more money and move it to tax-free. You see, they're all connected. And we want to manage, as long as we understand that we do have a connection with them, and anything we're doing, actually anything we should do, we may not be doing it, but we should be rebalancing portfolios and doing other things, moving to Roths. Project them out, considering the taxes. What's the implication long-term in the taxes for me to move money to a Roth in this year? And my income. How is that going to affect my income in the future? Because maybe I move money into a Roth, which means I have less in my IRAs, 401ks, which means that when I have to start taking it out with a defined percentage, the government won't force me to take out more than I need and drive me to higher brackets. So I might help myself two ways by moving to Roths where I wasn't considering doing that. Yeah. So there's just so much connection. I couldn't begin to tell you how many different scenarios you could look at, but the key first is knowledge, and know that there is a connection, direct connection with those three. And second, look out into the future and understand the implications of any changes made or any changes you could make that'll be beneficial later on.
I love it. Have a multi-year, 10-year projection future to where you're making moves today that will benefit your future self, and be strategic and intentional. Don't just hope for the best, because as we know, hope is not a strategy. Jack, you've laid out a whole lot of great overarching tactics here and strategy to execute on. So if someone is interested in saying, a couple of those points really resonated with me, what's the best way they can learn more and reach out and connect with you?
Well, they can always contact us through our website, fourthquarteradvisors.com, fourthquarteradvisors.com. It has some videos and research and contact points in there. They can always contact me, Jack, at fourthquarteradvisors.com, and I'll provide a cell number. My commitment is to helping people, and I don't care where you are. If I can help you with just some information on the phone, I'd be glad to. 203-507-3826.
Jack, once again, thank you so much for coming back on. I really enjoyed your wisdom.
It's been a pleasure to talk about this.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.